Before this episode begins, I want to tell you about something very exciting that I have been doing with members of the DMs After Dark team, specifically Amber, who is a librarian at my hometown's library, the Westward Public Library, and Christian, who you all know, co-designer of a game that is hopefully, I promise, coming out soon by us, and just some of my best, nerdiest friends. We have been editors working on a system-agnostic adventure book put out by the library. Amber secured grants for it, and it's going to be a book full of 10 adventures from local authors and RPG nerds from our general area, and they are going to be adventures you can drop and play in a bunch of different genres and games and stuff like that, and it's been really, really fun to work with people to come up with these adventures, edit them to playable. They've been play tested, and now we're opening the playtesting to the public. So if you want to know more about this adventure anthology we're calling Wicked Good Adventures, Big Adventures from the Smallest State, you can follow the link that I've put in the description to find a calendar where you can hop in on some of these playtests of these adventures for yourself. So check it out, try and support the library and just us nerds, and I hope that you enjoy. And if you do end up playing any of them, please let me know. The episode opens on Iorlas, astride Romelia, riding down south the Greenway road out of Bree. The road quickly transitions from the inhabited lands around Bree to steep, concentrated hills, now in early summer, overgrown with grasses. The road splits two sections known as the Barrow Downs and South Downs, these hills that roll and end in various cliffs or have openings to the ground, beckoning those to enter the darkness. But we see Iorlas confidently, with purpose, riding south. When he dips below the tops of these hills and the wind no longer blows the grasses and it gets still and stifling and the sound almost dims and dampens, he's still focused. In fact, he's hearing the words of Gandalf from The Night of the Prancing Pony replay in his head as he told Gandalf the story of his adventures and exploration of Fornos Terrain, the history and ancestry of not only the Dunedain and the Rangers and the capital of men of Dunedain that was Fornost, the shadow that he had to defeat, the glimpse into the Palantiri below the ancient dome, where he locked eyes with a power that he is still yet to grasp with. Gandalf heard it all and told Iorlas a tale that relates to Nimloth's tear, which, instead of being in its sheath and on his hip as he rides, Iorlas actually has laid across his lap, and he's looking at it again while he rides south. And Gandalf's voice, the memory of it rings in Iorlas's ears.
In the beginning, there were two trees, Telperion and Lorlin, and in time they were destroyed by Melkor and the foul monster Ungoliant out of jealousy. From these trees, however, seeds were taken and new trees given life. From Galathilion came Celeborn, then from Celeborn bore Nimloth, the white tree of Numenor. And when Isildur fled the fall of Numenor to Middle-earth, he did so with a seed that would become the first tree of Gondor, planted in what was Minas Ithil, what we now call Minas Morgul, home to the Nazgul heart of Mordor. When Sauron returned to Middle-earth, he burned the white tree, but not before its seeds spread, and one would become the white tree of Gondor in Minas Tirith. What you hold in your hands, Iorlas, what you wield as your bloodline's honor, is the light of life that can blind Sauron through his past and all of his rage. A light with shared roots to the Silmarils of Fëanor. A light you must never allow to extinguish.
Romelia has been walking as Iorlas is lost in these thoughts, and he emerges out of the shadow of one of these hills, back into the sunlight, the full sunlight of summer as he travels southward, and he holds Nimloth's tear up in the light. Beyond the reflection of the sun and the light gleaming off of this blade, we now see that there is an additional glow to it that Iorlas has found a way to unleash. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the One Ring 2nd Edition Strider Mode here on the Rene Plays Games podcast. I hope that you are all having a wonderful summer yourselves, and I am very excited to get back into this, going after our second quest here for Cirdan the Shipwright as opposed to Gandalf. We will see if we ever run back into Cirdan or what we run into heading down to the coast near Eryn Vorn. But before we start playing more One Ring 2nd Edition, I do have some announcements for the rest of the month. Alright, well, next week is going to be a continuation of my Ironsworn Legacies playtesting as opposed to a design diaries, because I just need to get the games that I've finished out, because I just need to make them look even remotely decent, and I just need to put them out. So before I go talking about more games, I need to get these other games out. I've had a few discussions with people actually about potentially putting out a quick start Ashcan play-testable version for the public of Gardens of Rust. Gonna see if that's something I can do, hopefully in the next few months. And other than that, that will bring us through July, and we'll be into August, which is crazy. And I'm very excited for the month of August, but I'm not going to start talking about that yet. This is going to keep these announcements really short, and we're just going to dive right back into some more One Ring 2nd Edition, see what Iorlas finds as he begins heading south. All right, so I know a lot of you are probably thinking to yourselves, wait a second, you told us you were going to talk about the famous weapons and the upgrades to magic items and wondrous artifacts and all this stuff from last episode, and I'm going to do that. However, I looked at it through the core rulebook, and I liked a lot of what I saw about how you're supposed to give some of your items back to places where you have your fellowship phases and provide the spoils and the loot of your adventures to these places to better protect themselves in the coming war against Shadow, and just protect themselves against everything in the world as you upgrade your own equipment and all that stuff. And in doing so, that would be how you unlock additional boons or abilities of the items that you have. That's great. As a solo adventurer, I don't have the luxury of having a bunch of other stuff that I can give to upgrade some of the equipment, so I'm playing it fast and loose, and I decided to homebrew a few things. But one of the things I did do, according to the book itself, is I did give Nimloth's Tear a second ability, and I actually gave it a third, but to get that third, you'll hear what happens. Real quick, before we start our actual journeying phase and heading south, the upgrades to Nimloth's Tear, I think, are pretty cool. A reminder, Nimloth's Tear is a longsword of Númenórean craftsmanship, and it does have a bane against evil men and undead. We've seen that come up quite a bit. I am conveniently coming up against evil men and undead a bit more than orcs so far, and goblins and things like that, because that's just where the story seems to be going, and it's helpful in that I want to use this cool sword. So its first quality that it had when we first created it was foe slaying, which is basically what allows me to give them ill-favored rolls on their protection rolls if they or potentially wounded if I roll a piercing hit or I roll a Gandalf rune. The second quality that I'm going to give it, I'm not going to give it the third in its actual real thing here, is hammering. And hammering seems like a pretty cool one in my opinion, especially given how we've described Iorlas fighting a lot. Hammering says for any craftsmanship item and any close combat weapon, a creature hit by this weapon and suffering an endurance loss equal to or superior to twice its attribute level is additionally knocked back and must spend its next main action to stand up. So, attribute level is a number on the stat blocks of enemies in the One Ring, and if I say I get a 6, and I can add my strength, my rating to the damage that I do, that might be enough to double the attribute level of the enemy, and then I knock it down and make it waste its next turn. But I thought I could do a little more, so I gave it an additional quality in upgrading it here because of the use of defeating the shadow and how Nimloth's Tear kind of banished the evil that had taken over the lingering soul of this long-lost Dunedain. And I hinted at it a little bit in the cold open, which is that there is now a glow to Nimloth's Tear, which I think is also very fitting given that it comes from one of the white trees, these glowing trees that are the descendants of the original 2 trees. It's not like Sting, like Frodo and Bilbo's Sting, which glows in the presence of evil men and undead. No, instead, I decided to homebrew something because I don't know if this is broken. Maybe Free League is going to come at me and be like, you crazy person. But I gave it a new ability, which is a new combat ability for any stance, really. Although I think it would have to be some kind of melee stance, where Iorlas can use his action to roll awe, and he raises Nimloth's Tear and causes it to shine brightly and reduce all enemies' attacks against him by 1d, plus an additional 1d for every success icon rolled, those Tengwar. I think that seems pretty fair, right? It's just, the shining light of this sword is cowing them back to not be as effective at coming at him to hit him. Now, if I do that in the presence of evil men and undead, then attacks on Iorlas's next turn gain plus 1d for Iorlas to attack them. If I roll a Gandalf rune, then enemies are similarly cowed to the point where they must spend their next action to cover their eyes, or they skip their next turn. It seems really, really strong. I might find that last part with the Gandalf rune is too powerful, but as I'm a solo adventurer, I don't think I would give this to a party because I think that they're going to be fighting larger groups and it's something like that. But for this solo adventure, I feel like it's fitting. It just feels like a really cool moment that I hope happens by the end of this series. All right, and I've talked for a bit now about upgrading Nimloth's Tear, so let's go ahead and get into actually playing this game. For the record, I did not upgrade either Coriel, the horn, or the brooch of the Arthedain Dunedain crest family, because those are wondrous items and artifacts. They're not famous weapons. They don't get additional qualities. All right, now let's go ahead and roll to see what the first travel encounter we're going to have is here, as we travel south along the Greenway as opposed to north. Now, let's see, I have 2 ranks in the travel skill, and it is a favored skill for me, so I'm rolling 2d12, and we are going to travel south. Oh, I forgot to mention, and this would have been relevant if I didn't get that second d12. I just rolled a 6 on one of my feat dice and an Eye of Sauron on the other. The curse that I have given Nimloth's Tear, because there is a way to give items curses in this game that I felt like was really appropriate, especially given Gandalf's story about how the light of Nimloth's Tear can blind Sauron, given the past rage and the memories it probably evokes in Sauron of that tree that he burned to light the first fires of the temple to Melkor when Minas Ithil fell, when he came back to Gondor and Mordor. I think that he has not quite the level of fear that Iorlas experienced when he looked in the Palantiri, but I think that enough that it's a reminder, or it's something where what he thought he had eliminated has proven not to be gone. And so therefore, I think that Nimloth's Tear holds a certain kind of, I don't want to say power over Sauron, because that's not it at all, but he is a little weary of it. And because he's weary of it, I actually decided to give a curse, which is all of the eye awareness thresholds for Darklands, Wildlands, and Borderlands are reduced by 2, because Sauron is not going to let Iorlas out of his sight for long. So that means we are at an eye awareness of 11 right now, and we are entering Darkland hexes, which the threshold for eye awareness is only 12 there. So if I'd gotten that Eye of Sauron and had to increase my eye awareness, we would have had a Revelation episode. We'll see. If I roll another Eye of Sauron in this session, we may end up doing that. Also, traveling south, I am entering a perilous hexagon. So there are Darklands on either side of the Greenway heading south, but I think that for the sake of this being fun, I succeeded in my travel roll, and I've entered a hex here where I'm going to have to resolve 2 travel encounter or events before I can leave these hexes, because it is such a perilous region on the edge of the old forest at the edge of the Shire, in between that and Bree. So these South Downs, these Barrow Downs, are particularly dangerous places. And so luckily we succeeded there, but I'm going to have to roll for 2 journey events. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to do it using the regular rules for journey events, and also the Ruins and Broken Stones table from the core rulebook, which is for events along the Greenway. Alright, so here it goes. We're going to roll both of these d12 at the same time and see what happens for journey events. That is a 1 and a 5. Alright, so we're going to use the 1 on the solo journey events table for despair, and then we're going to use the 5 for the Ruins along the Greenway table in the core rulebook. So let's go ahead and roll a d6 on the despair table. And we get a 2, which says torrential weather. Ooh, so I think maybe jarring Iorlas out of his unfocused kind of reverie, thinking of the words that Gandalf spoke to him just a few days ago. He hears a thunderclap and looks up and sees that a summer storm is rolling in over these South Downs, these hills, and he starts to gauge, oh boy, I'm going to need to get to cover within the next hour or so. And it says here that I would need to succeed on an explore roll, or I will suffer 2 points of shadow from dread. So I'm going to roll explore, which I have 2 ranks in. It is not a favored skill, so we're going to just roll d12 and 2d6. Oof, I got a 2 on the feat die, but I got a 6 and a 5 on the skill dice for a 13 total, which is actually a failure for explore. Ooh, okay, so I'm going to suffer 2 points of dread as maybe that thunderclap. Oh, you know what would be really cool is snapping him out of his daydreaming. Iorlas hears this thunderclap. Romelia kind of bucks a little bit at the sharp, sudden sound, and Iorlas thinks to himself, I have to find cover, I have to find somewhere to be, somewhere safe. We have to hunker down and let this storm pass. And he is riding hard, trying to find a place. He's exploring to find the best route to a copse of trees or an overhang or somewhere safe, and he cannot find one. He's in these open hills, and he's looking up, and the clouds are getting darker and roiling and getting closer. And when he looks up at the clouds, another flash of lightning before the boom of thunder, and in that flash of lightning, the shadows that can be seen in the clouds, the dark clouds that are rolling in, look like the eye and bring him right back to that Palantiri. And he is shook to his core. So we are going to take 2 points of shadow from dread, bringing us up to 3 shadow. Yikes, we have 1 shadow scar. We are prone to becoming idle now from this traumatic event. And Iorlas is riding hard. He's trying to find somewhere when suddenly, maybe seen as a sign of hope or something, he sees someone else running. They don't have the luxury of a horse. A woman is hobbling. She's trying to move quickly, but she seems to have a limp of some kind, and she is running along the Greenway, and she waves to Iorlas, and she says, "Oh, please! Oh, thank goodness! Oh, thank goodness! My leg is not what it used to be, and we did not think the storm was going to be rolling in. Please, sir, can you give me a ride? We have a farm not far from here. It's a safe place. There's a homestead nearby." And Iorlas looks at her and nods. Of course. Yes, we must not stay out here for this storm. Could I potentially roll insight to see if something seems amiss about this? Or I think, as terrible as it sounds, I think that Iorlas might, as a ranger, as a messenger, as somebody who does this, I think he would certainly help get this person out of this danger. And he's not in his right mind. He is dealing with the shadows and the trauma of the recent past. So I think that he doesn't even think twice. He grabs this woman's arm, lifts her up, pulls her onto Romelia, and as they continue down the Greenway, and she guides him towards this homestead where she says her and a few are trying to make their life and trying to build something here. And they get there just in the nick of time before wind and sideways rain begin pelting the ramshackle building that is this homestead. It is in desperate need of repair, but it is a roof over their heads nonetheless. It is somewhere better to be than out in the open, and Iorlas puts her down and helps her inside, ties off Romelia as he gets the horse and everything into a safe, dry place to wait out this storm. As he walks into this building, the woman is walking ahead of him and very playfully says, "Oi boys, I'm back. I knew you weren't worried about me, but luckily I found me a big, strong ranger of the north to come bring me back here. How do you think we should welcome the ranger?" And, of course, she has lured me into a trap from southern raiders who would love nothing more than to steal our beautiful horse Romelia and all the things that Iorlas is currently carrying. So, the table in the ruins of the Greenway says, "A southerner raider is hobbling up the Greenway, masquerading as an injured farmer. She asks the character to walk with her to the nearby homestead, but when they arrive, they find it to be a ramshackle barn where several of the raiders' allies ambush the player heroes." I'm going to roll a d6 and have this for how many of the southern raiders are additionally there. I don't know if this woman is going to be a combatant. We'll factor that in. I did get a 5, so halved would be 3 southerner raiders, and I think I might add, maybe we'll do 2 of them, and then one of them is this big, huge man, and he is a southerner champion, so he's a bit stronger than the other 2. And this woman is, of course, not going to participate, but you know what we'll do is I will try to remember that as this fight is about to break out and go down, she is going to be maybe going through Romelia's saddlebags, and she's going to be going through Iorlas's things, just to make things interesting. So let's do a combat. And as always, the first thing that happens in a combat sequence is the opening volleys, and I don't think that there's any reasonable world where Iorlas had his archette bow out and ready to fire. So he's not going to be able to take part in the opening volleys. I'm not going to have the champion do it. He does have a long hafted axe and a spear. I don't think he's throwing this spear. I think that he's just going to use this big axe. But the 2 other raiders do have short spears that I think that they might throw and then wield their axes in combat. I have a feeling I have certainly made this combat way too difficult, but we're going to find out. I'm going to use 1 resolve from each of the raiders to get +1 die and be favored on their opening volley attack because they are ambushing Iorlas. They have an advantage here where he had no idea they were coming, and 2 spears come flying out from this barn. So the first one is going to be, oh my god, a terrible roll. Incredible. So that is a 3 + 6 + 2 is 11, which is nowhere near Iorlas's parry rating. So that's awesome. So the first one actually misses. Let's see if the second one gets it with 2d12 and 2d6. Ooh, this one is definitely going to hit. That one is a 10 plus 2 5s, so that is 20. And a 10, I believe, is a piercing blow, even for enemies. Let me double check. Yes, indeed, 10 or the Eye of Sauron roll. So that would mean that this is going to be a piercing blow. So Iorlas just as he's recovered from all of the beatings he took in Fornost Arain, is going to take a spear, which is going to hit and potentially deal even more damage with a wound, but this will deal 3 damage, and the protection roll is against a 14. So we are going to be down to 23 endurance, and the champion hasn't even gotten to go yet, but neither has Iorlas. So let's see, we might be able to turn this around pretty quick. We're going to make our protection roll, which for Iorlas is a d12 and 2d6 because of our leather corselet. And we handily succeed at that. That is going to be a 17 for our protection roll, which beats the 14 injury rating of the short spear, so we do not take a wound, which is good. Let's not deal with that. And now we move into the actual beginning of combat, which is close quarters rounds, which start with the stances. I think that the 2 raiders are going to rush in first, and I think that the champion is going to like slowly, menacingly kind of walk in. So they're both going to have very aggressive stances. They move into melee regardless. They don't actually have the benefits of stances. Iorlas, I think, is fighting in a defensive stance, and I'm actually going to use the new ability of Nimloth's Tear to pull it out and make it shine brightly. These are evil men. These are men preying on the weak and the unsuspecting. They are southerners who maybe have fallen under the sway of the shadow, and maybe Nimloth's Tear will make them think twice about doing anything here. Now, I didn't think of this when I came up with this new quality for Nimloth's Tear, but technically the horn, the Horn of Corihel that we found also in the abandoned homestead on the way to Fornost Arain, does give us a bonus to awe rolls, but I don't know if I need to be using the horn specifically to get it. The rulebook doesn't seem like you need to be, and I think maybe by unsheathing Nimloth's Tear and pushing his ranger cloak back and seeing all of what Iorlas is showing up to this unexpected fight holding might be enough to get the additional +2 die from the blessing of Corihel. So we're going to roll 1d12 plus 3d6 for this awe roll to attempt to scare these evil men. And that is a 10. No 6s, unfortunately, but that is an enormous success. That's a 21 for this awe roll. Now let's check what I even wrote here for this again. Now it's going to reduce enemy attacks by 1 die plus an additional 1 die for each 6. I didn't roll any 6s. And then my attacks against any affected evil men and undead next turn will have +1 die. Awesome. Okay, so that is going to be a resounding success as they begin charging in, and they shield their eyes from the bright gleam of Nimloth's Tear as they are going to rush in and begin attacking. Now, between the successful awe roll and Iorlas fighting defensively, they're only rolling 1d12 plus 1d6, so they're going to have to roll enormous in order to hit Iorlas. Let's see. They do not. Both of them roll incredibly poorly, and I think maybe the champion pushes them out of the way, and he's just like, "What is wrong with you two?" And he's going to attempt to attack as well. He has a long-hafted axe that he's going to swing. He also is going to suffer the same penalties, but he's going to try, and of course, he gets an Eye of Sauron rune, which means that this is a piercing blow from his long-hafted axe. So, that is going to be 6, oh my goodness, 6 endurance damage. Holy cow, as Iorlas is fending off the smaller axes of the 2 raiders, and this man pushes them aside and just comes down with a hammering blow. Now, if I'd gotten a 6 on his skill die, his special success option is to break shield, so good thing we didn't get that, but I'm going to take the 6 endurance, which is ridiculous, and I now have to make my protection roll against his, oh my goodness, injury rating is 18. Is there anything I can use? I don't know if I can use distinctive features for this. I don't think I can. So I just have to hope that I roll really high. And I do not at all, which means that I'm going to take a wound from this. I am in a lot of trouble. I now have to roll one of the feat die and reference the wound severity table on page 101. Oh, that's the best. That's the second best roll I could have gotten. I rolled an 11 on my die, which is a 1 effectively on these dice, and it says severe injury. This will take the number of the result in days to recover, so only 1. So it's not the worst it could be, thank goodness. But that's going to bring us to the next round of combat, and I think that luckily it didn't break Iorlas' shield, but maybe it did like severely sprain his offhand as he got his buckler up and just kind of it hit, and he can just feel it. There was maybe a slight fracture in one of those like wrist bones or one of his arm bones, his ulna or his radius, and he's got the pins and needles and numbness in that left hand. It's going to be hard to get his shield up, so he's going to drop defensive stance and move into just a regular stance where he gets no advantage or disadvantage. We did up our swords proficiency to 3, so now we are rolling, and I'm going to, of course, be rolling against this champion. Let's see, I'm going to, should I use a distinctive feature of honorable to get an additional 2d6 to this roll? Because that could be crazy. That'd be plus 5d6. It would guarantee pretty much that I hit, but what can I do unless I'm chasing 6s? We're just going to roll this against... Oh, that's an enormous roll. That is a 7, 8, 14, 19 will absolutely hit, and I got 1 6 on my skill dice, which is a special success, so I can do something with it. Which I'm going to choose Heavy Blow, which allows me to spend 1 success icon to inflict an additional amount of endurance loss equal to my strength rating. +1 if you're wielding a two-handed weapon. I'm not, but that's going to increase my damage from Nimloth's Tear from 4 to 10 endurance loss for this champion. But more importantly, now that I have unlocked Hammering as a quality for Nimloth's Tear, that 10 endurance loss is equal to twice the attribute level of this enemy, which means that I am going to be able to knock him back, and he's going to have to spend his entire action this turn just standing back up. That's huge. Okay, now these other 2 raiders are going to get to go, and they're both going to come at me with their axes. That is just enough to hit with a 17. And, ooh, that one is terrible and not going to hit. So I'm going to take another 3 endurance damage from a glancing axe blow as one of them keeps just hounding me. I think that basically I'm always avoiding one of these 2 regular raiders, but the other just seems to get a glancing hit in every single time. I mostly have to worry about this champion who is going to stumble back, fall into some hay, maybe knock against a large beam that's holding up a loft or something like that. Meanwhile, this is when Iorlas is looking around, watches him fall over, and slowly start to stand up when he sees that woman who was pretending to limp not have a limp anymore, and she's sneaking outside, and he says, "What do you think you're doing?" He goes, "None of that is yours. Stay put." He's even gonna like whistle maybe to Romelia. And so we're gonna go again. We are in open stance, no bonus or penalty here, so we are going to attack. Unfortunately, this round I'm going to have to go after one of these raiders as the big guy is slowly reapproaching. That is another huge success. That is 5, 10, 11, 17, which is much more than my strength TN of 12. So that is going to hit one of these raiders, and I get a 6. So I can use one of these special successes to do something else. And I'm not going to use a heavy blow. I'm going to use Fend Off. Exploiting your successful attack to place yourself in an advantageous position, I spend 1 success icon to modify my parry rating by +2 for the rest of the round against these raiders. So now my parry is 19 they're going to have to hit. But I've been forgetting to do this. I'm going to continue spending all of their resolves, and I'm going to get them favored and +1d to these rolls. So this is about to get really dangerous for me here as we go up against these raiders. So with their axes, oh my goodness, these raiders are going to get 2d12 plus 4d6 to attempt to hit me and my target of 19. But, oh, I think this is going to miss. Let's see. That is a 17 on the first one, and that's the better of their 2 rolls. And the second one, oh my goodness, again, that's 10, 15, 16. So neither of the 2 regular guys hit me, and now the champion, still just 3, so they're going to get the same roll, 2d12 and 4d6. And I got 2 1s. Let's see, a 6 and a 3, that's 11. 17, thanks to my fend off. I actually fend off all 3 of them for this whole round. That was such an awesome use of that ability, and you don't realize the little bit that +2 is going to make, but it made all of those attacks miss where they could have hit before. That's awesome. And now we're going into this next round. Once again, Iorlas is going to press the advantage against this champion himself, and he's going to continuing to fend off, right, play defensively with this success where he's slapping aside these axes. He's going to maybe dangerously dash between these 2 axe-wielding raiders to go after the leader. 1d12, 3d6. That is a 10 on the feat die for a piercing blow and a 6 on the skill dice. So that's going to be 24 to hit is absolutely going to hit. I can, just with this 6, ensure that I will take his endurance down to 0. So I think I'm going to do that, although regardless, he has to make a protection roll, and he is ill-favored in this roll because of my foe-slaying evil men Nimloth's tier. So his armor is 3. He has to beat a injury rating of Nimloth's tier of 16, but he has to roll 2d12 and take the lower. He gets a Gandalf rune, which I think is 0 for him, so he absolutely fails this and is going to lose 1 might, taking the champion out of this fight. And now just standing there are these 2 raiders, as let's think about how this looks, as Iorlas wielding the shining Nimloth's tier, slapping aside axes in this round where his other arm is kind of dangling. He's still trying to get the feeling back into it, and he's fending them off with his sword, and the champion rushes forward. He takes another huge axe swing and comes down with it, and as he gets back up to kind of hide behind his 2 other friends, Iorlas is already rushing towards him and just maybe buries his sword. And now this is where this is going to get interesting. I have 2 things that I have to do after combat that I've just realized, but I think that Iorlas does just bury his sword into this champion and like kick him off, and down he goes, dying to the floor of this barn. And I think that he hears the woman scream from the door outside as she sees it happen. The other 2 raiders are looking on, scared, not sure what to do at this moment, as Iorlas pulls his sword and turns to them. With our special success, I think that I will probably fend off again and increase my parry rating, and we will then use the same thing as before. They're going to both get 2d12 and 4d6, but I think that at this point we might be more rolling morale for them than anything. Ooh, that's a big success for one of them. They are very upset about this. 23 with 2 6s, so I have to look up what they can do. They have pierce. Oh no, that's with their short spears. I don't know if they have something from their axes. Let me check. They can always choose to inflict a heavy blow. Since they can only do it once, the other is unfortunately wasted, but they're going to hit and deal an additional amount of damage equal to their rating. So that means that Iorlas is actually going to lose 7 endurance from this, bringing him below his load, so he is now weary from this axe hit. The other axe wielder is going to roll and miss because of the... Yep, that would have been a hit if it weren't for the fend off. So Iorlas is constantly fighting these 2, and it's just because there's 2 of them. He cannot constantly be fending off both of them. And now that we are weary, 1s, 2s, and 3s on our skill dice are going to be useless to us. So I am up against 2 raiders. I think that this is where Iorlas is going to spend a hope to use one of his distinctive features for bold. Maybe they're not expecting him to be so bold after getting hit with an axe very hard by one of these raiders, but I'm going to and get d12 and 5d6 against these raiders. Oh boy. Okay, well that's certainly going to hit. I got 2 6s, which is going to allow me to... Well, I can take out one of the raiders, which is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take out one of the remaining raiders, and the other one is up. I'm going to give Iorlas a free... And this is going to sound crazy. A free persuade roll, or maybe awe, to basically convince him to get lost with this woman. Like, run out. He's going to look at them, and he's going to, once again, having just like slashed this other raider, and there's a huge seeping wound as he's falling to the ground, presumably dead. Iorlas is going to look to the last one, bleeding himself, holding his arm. He's going to say,
"You'd have better luck with the storm if you knew what was good for you." This is a chance for you to start over. I'm giving you one chance.
And let's see if I can convince him. Is this more awe or persuade? I think it's actually more awe. And I'm not just saying that because of the Nimlot's Tear and the +2 die I get from the blessing. I think that is more what I'm doing. So let's see. Oh my goodness. Well, 1s, 2s, and 3s don't matter. So those 2 1s don't matter. But luckily I got a 10 on the feat die and a 4 on one of my other skill dice. So that means I get a 14, just enough, thankfully, to overcome my strength TN of 12, which is going to cause this man, this last remaining raider, and this woman to run off into the storm. And now 2 things need to happen. Not just Iorlas resting and recovering. I just read a rule that we did not get right, and it's going to matter. First, evil men are evil, but they have resolve, not hate, as a character trait. Hate is irredeemable, evil beings of shadow. Evil men are evil. They are under the sway. They have resolve to do misdeeds. But there are rules where if killing is not necessary, and killing these men is something that Iorlas did, it may weigh on him in a way that could accumulate shadow points or even possible misdeeds. Do we think that that is something? He was ambushed. He really did not have a choice but to defend himself. There are misdeeds here in the book. Violent threats, malicious lies. It does say killing surrendered or harmless foes. I don't think that's what we did. It does say murder, but I don't think that's what we did either. I think, and if anything, I think that us offering this last raider an out, and this woman who clearly tricked us an out, makes this not a misdeed. Maybe I'm being generous. Feel free to comment or let me know if you think that I should have earned one as Iorlas there, but he is heaving once again. He just kind of shakes his head and he just says,
I will never have a moment of peace again.
And as he says that, when we took on 2 points of shadow from dread, from the seeing the eye in the storm, we were supposed to increase eye awareness by the amount of dread and shadow points that we accumulated, which would have brought our eye awareness up to 13. And now that we are in the Darklands, the hunt threshold for a Darkland is 14, but my curse, because of Nimlot's Tear, reduced those thresholds by 2 each, because I'm apparently someone who likes to torture myself a lot. So, oh boy, here goes. We need to have a revelation episode. Revelation episodes are dangerous events reflecting the increased hostility of the world towards the player character. To determine the nature of a revelation episode and its consequences, we need to think about what is happening right now. It's not just another ambush, it's nothing like that. The nature of a revelation episode should suggest there are strange forces at work, not always in tandem with the Dark Lord themselves. Maybe this could be something to do with the Southerners coming up out of the gap of Rohan towards Eriador. Not sure. So the solo rules are a little bit different. It says when your eye awareness matches or exceeds the current hunt threshold, we need to influence the actions of the enemy or other sinister or hateful powers. We're going to roll 1 feat die on the Revelation episode table. Here goes. Oh boy. Okay, well, I rolled a 7, which says an item you carry holds a curse or is hunted by an enemy. And we actually know that to be true, so is that a little too on the nose? I'm going to roll one more time just to see, and maybe, you know what, I'll ask the telling table something as well. Perfect. I also got a 3, which says spies of the enemy carry word of your mission. Okay, interesting. Well, I guess that these raiders could, wherever they're going to go, mention a ranger heading south. Maybe they know or don't know specifics of my mission. I'm now going to ask the telling table something, which is going to be, is one of my other items, either the horn or the brooch of Arthedain. Are those potentially cursed? I think that if it's going to be either, I think it's going to be the brooch. So we're going to say that this is middling. So if I roll a 6 or greater on this feat die, the brooch is also haunted. That is a 1, so no, the brooch is not haunted. The only haunted item that we are currently carrying is, or not haunted, cursed item is Nimloth's Tear. Crashing down, seated into the hay where he'd knocked the champion prior, and there are two dead bodies in this barn now, and Iorlas is looking at them as he is catching his breath and flexing his hands and his fingers. He's looking around, he looks outside where it is still pouring rain and thunder and lightning. The clouds are roiling, and he doesn't have Nimloth's Tear sheathed yet. He has, the handle, and the point of it is just kind of down as he is sitting there. And I think maybe in the reflection where we will end this episode is that we see Iorlas see himself in the reflection, sweaty, bloody maybe from one of these attacks. And he sees his eyes, and he sees how, despite having just had a week off, having just fought these raiders, this ambush, these evil men here in this barn, how haunted he looks. And then, in the glint of the sword, catching a flash of lightning, he once again sees the eye. And that is where we're going to end this episode. Oof. Well, we only got 3 hexes out of Bree, but it seems like it's going to be a long road south to Eryn Vorn. Well, that's fine with me. And I hope that you are enjoying this series, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you do, please leave a rating and review on your podcatcher of choice, just to help more folks find me. You can always reach out to me at rainyplaysgamespod@gmail.com, or join the DMs After Dark Discord. There will be a link in the description to come hang there. They got pets, they got game talk, they got life talk. We're a fun little group of friends and nerds over there, so come say hi. And I think this time I'm just going to say, until next time, find the light inside of you that outshines any darkness, and refuse to ever let it extinguish. See you next time.